Hi, my name is Coldbeer and let's start with the Outer Worlds. This is the closest thing to Fallout 3, Fallout 4 and Fallout New Vegas. Of course, there are tons of differences, but the general feeling is really Falloutish. Though Fallout is by no means a humorless game, the Outer Worlds tries to overshine it in that field. In fact, at first it looks like a comedy game, you know, like a Saints Row or something, and only later you realize that humor is not the only thing the game offers. The gameplay is very smooth. Every step you take, every shot you make, everything feels right and balanced, except when you get into melee and start swinging your giant thingy. That feels way worse. You can't really feel the impacts you're making, so the satisfaction level is something like 5 out of 10. And that's a shame, because melee fighting is actually a huge part of this game. Don't make the same mistake I did in the character creation screen when I put 0 points into a close combat fighting. Here you will constantly run out of bullets, so the swings of your banhammer will be pretty usual thing. If asked what score it is worth, I would give this game 10 cold beers out of 10 and wouldn't even blink. It is a great game. Terminator Resistance. I remember seeing a trailer of this game a few years ago and I was like,
nah, this probably will be a flop.
And I ignored it on my false prejudice for years. Why false? It has 92% of positive reviews on Steam, only 3% short from overwhelmingly positive titles, so it's almost a masterpiece. Terminator Resistance is a first-person shooter set during the future war scenario that was only glimpsed in the first 2 iconic movies. The machines are destined to lose, but at what cost? So basically here you'll run and gun or sneak and hack through Skynet's defenses, level up your skills and explore a post-apocalyptic world for scraps to trade and craft, also interact with other survivors and change their fates. Game has pretty good enemy AI. For example, when alerted, Terminators will bash doors, look into vents and so on, and they will find you and blast your brains all over the walls, except if you blast their nuts and bolts first. Most people are recommending to buy it for the full price without any doubts, but if you put into your wishlist you can get about 60% discount when it's on sale. Stalker franchise. While Stalker 2 is still in the works, let us talk about what we already have. Stalker franchise has 3 episodes: Shadow of Chernobyl, Clear Sky and Call of Pripyat. Because they are all made using the same X-ray engine, which is only slightly improved with every episode, it's hard to tell which game came first to an untrained eye. So here, after the second disaster of the Chernobyl nuclear plant, all kinds of mutants are released into the world, and you, being a Stalker, collect various artifacts in that contaminated zone and then sell them. You will search for nice things, and in your adventures you will encounter some creepy-ass monsters. Some of them are very scary, especially some invisible abominations in the sewers, and yeah, Stalker is a horror game. You'll have to have a tough mental balls to play it alone, but it is an amazing experience and I'm definitely recommending it. Dying Light 1 and Dying Light 2. A lot of post-apocalyptic open-world games are zombie-themed, so I try to put only the most interesting of them in this list, and Dying Light is definitely one of them. The first part has overwhelmingly positive reviews on Steam, and that makes at least 95% of all players happy with their purchase. Second part is not as well received, only mostly positive review score and accordingly 78% of happy customers. If you're interested, click on the card in the upper corner and watch my review of Dying Light 2 later. Anyway, here you'll have to survive in a city ravaged by, obviously, zombie virus and freely roam around basking in its unique atmosphere. You will also use parkour skills to jump or climb buildings and reach remote areas. But the most dramatic shift in the world comes at the sundown as you change from a hunter to a hunted. That is a terrifying experience and you would never leave the safe zone at night, but the best quests and rewards await you only when the darkness falls. Elex 1 and Elex 2. The game is set in a post-apocalyptic science fantasy universe that puts you into a game world full of interesting characters, mutants, deep moral choices, and a lot of action. The novelty which distinguishes Elex 2 from the first game the most is an entire system of aerial combat with all its benefits, including enemies with an improved AI. That is what developers are saying, but actually for me all the enemies feels kinda dumb anyway. In Elex 2, just like in the first Elex and in real life, you will be able to join various groups and factions. You will start as a freelancer, and in this way you will get familiar with all of them. And later, in the endgame, you know, you will become some archmage warrior king of eternal power who will not care about anything, but until then your words and actions will have dire consequences. And I have to stress out that there you will find multiple endings as well. You'll probably not even bother to watch them all on YouTube, but it's nice that they are here anyway. Both games have mostly positive reviews on Steam, so wait for a sale and then snatch them both from this ripe gaming tree to your personal account. Cyberpunk 2077. Well, let's be fair, this is not a post-apocalyptic game unlike almost every other game in this list, but so is The Outer Worlds, which is almost a clone of Fallout, and Cyberpunk 2077, just like Fallout 4, is a first-person RPG shooter with a massive open world and a great story. Of course, almost everyone has heard that Cyberpunk flopped massively on release because of performance issues and the general feeling of it being an unfinished game. Police instantly teleporting behind your back was just a cherry on the top. The game was released without advertised metro system, which was literally specifically shown in the main trailer of a game. Driving cars felt like driving a bag of sand, and I'm not even talking about the lack of such casual features as a hairdresser. You had to play the whole game with the same dumb green beard and pink eyebrows you chose while being drunk. Anyway, after some time, major updates and fixes are slowly turning it into a decent game. Like, really slowly. But you can already change your haircut and the police are teleporting a bit further away. It still literally feels like they are teleporting though, and that sucks. Recently, developers said that a complete overhaul to the cop system as well as vehicle-to-vehicle combat is in the works. When it will be updated, nobody knows. So if you're hoping for another GTA 5 here, it's nothing like that. You can't even fly here. But the part where you take your gun and shoot and then gain some really great skill points just like in Fallout, this is good, made really well. Game has mostly positive reviews on Steam, and with future updates it will go only up. On sale it costs just half the price, so wishlisting is a smart thing to do. Mad Max. This is without a doubt one of the best open-world games on Steam. 91% of positive reviews are there for a reason. You will play as a lone warrior in a savage post-apocalyptic world where cars are the most important thing, the very key to your survival. So in Mad Max you will have the same mindset as my neighbor Vilus, who fixes his car every day, polishes the paint and spends more time with it than with its own wife. But the balance in nature is always around the corner. My other neighbor Tadas has no car, so he spends his time with Vilus's wife. Everyone is happy. Anyway, in Mad Max you will find an action-packed open world where you must fight against vicious gangs of bandits to stay alive in the wasteland. You want nothing more than to leave the madness behind and to find solace in the mythical plains of silence. Along the way in your search you are challenged with treacherous missions as you scavenge the dangerous landscape for supplies to build the ultimate combat vehicle of your dreams. Price is great, so if you have spare money just grab it without any regrets. Days Gone. This is an open-world action-adventure game set in a harsh wilderness 2 years after a devastating global pandemic, which has made a lot of zombies out of unlucky humans. You will take control of a bounty hunter trying to find a reason to live in a land surrounded by death. You will scavenge through abandoned settlements for equipment or craft valuable items and weapons, or take your chances with other survivors. Also, as I always say, have you noticed how every single movie, TV show or video game about zombies tries to call them any other name except zombies? Walkers, biters, flesh-eaters, crazed ones, infected, creepers, roamers, and so on. Anything except zombies. And in Days Gone, zombies are called freakers. And no, zombie is not a copyrighted word, at least for 30 recent years. And that, although I like this variety, makes no sense, because if the zombie apocalypse actually happened, you would call it zombie apocalypse, not freakers apocalypse or walkers apocalypse. That is ridiculous. You know, if you saw a man at night drinking blood from the neck of another human being, you wouldn't say something like,
"Ah, I know what it is. It's a sucky, a red liquid thirster, siphoner, freaky imbiber, a burner in the sun, a necky biter, the drinker of human juices."
You wouldn't say that. Anyway, Days Gone has very positive reviews on Steam, so give it a try. Rage. The first Rage game is very Falloutish and more loved by players than Rage 2. Like your other siblings are way more loved than you and your family. The game is an interesting look into a life after the end of everything. And that end came along with an asteroid. Not very ingenious plot, but I guess still better love story than a zombie apocalypse. There are hundreds of more interesting ways to end the world than these cliché scenarios. For example, bear could become sentient and take over the world, or cats suddenly mutate into psychics, and when they are hungry, and that is all the time, everyone around them starts dancing until they drop dead. I don't know, the possibilities of world ending are actually endless. Why stick to like 7 most boring ones? So here you emerge into this vast wasteland to discover humanity working to rebuild itself against such forces as bandit gangs, mutants, and the Authority, an oppressive government regime that has a special interest in you in particular. Game costs only about €10, and on sale you can snatch it for about 4, so wishlisting is a good option. Metro franchise. There are 3 games in the series, and in every single one of them you play as Artyom, a survivor of nuclear war who is living in the metro tunnels of post-apocalyptic Moscow. You are not alone who lives there, various monsters are sharing the place with you. Not as scary as your mother-in-law, but they hate you and want you dead, so you have to defend yourself by shooting them and shooting again. Yes, this is a first-person shooter, so shooting is what you do here. You will find almost zero RPG elements, so if you play Fallout for the role playing alone, then probably these games will not spike your interest. But it doesn't hurt to try, right? Especially if you like scary metro tunnels of Fallout 3 or 4 full of bloodthirsty ghouls, and if it took you some mental balls to explore those areas, then in here you will have to have mental balls at least twice as big, or you know, more of them, like 3 instead of 2. Metro games are quite scary, believe me. Metro is based on the awesome books of the great Russian sci-fi writer Dmitry Gluchovsky. Now he is wanted as a criminal in Russia because he bravely publicly opposed Putin and Russia's war in Ukraine instead of being cowardly silent. So give this guy some love, he really deserves it. Generation Zero. The game was really hyped upon a release, and when people didn't get a masterpiece, bad reviews started to flow. That is a story of many games, and Generation Zero definitely doesn't deserve that, because it may not be a masterpiece, but it's not a bad game as well. Here we'll explore alternative Sweden in 1989. One day Swedes woke up early in the morning to milk their deer herds, because that's what they do in Sweden, and then instead of their beloved deers, they saw evil robots everywhere. Probably an evil doing of naughty Finns or Norwegians.
Du kommer att lita för detta.
So here the post-apocalypse is in the making, and you are a part of it. Alone or with up to 3 friends, you will have to sneak, scavenge and shoot your way to safety across a vast landscape. But keep in mind, that landscape isn't very varied. The map is large, but it's kinda shallow. Well, if it wasn't shallow, Generation Zero would be a masterpiece. Now it's just an okay post-apocalyptic game. Keep in mind that on sale you can buy it for only about €6 or dollars, and that is a great deal no matter what. And if you enjoyed this list, I have no doubts that you will enjoy the collection of games similar to Horizon Zero Dawn as well. 10 amazing open-world games that will definitely catch your attention. Click on the video and let's continue our friendship. Thank you for watching, have a nice day, and I'll see you next time, bye.